Hi, this is Katie with Empowering Astrology, and this is your look at the astrology of March 16th through 22nd, 2020. Boy, what a week it is so far. Let's check in with each other. How are you doing? How are you feeling? I know that this is a global audience, so it's not just my compatriots here in the United States, it's also you in Europe. And how are you dealing with the effects of what's going on? Of course, I'm here in a major metropolitan area, and I am staying put in my apartment as much as I can. So that said, let's talk about some big overview stuff. And if you're in the comments, by the way, just pop hello, say how you're doing, ask some questions. We'll see what we can get to in our time together. And something that I wrote today in my daily post about the astrology is that there's a lot going on and there's a lot of nuance, and we need to kind of take the time to unpack it. And it's happening very quickly. I mean, I was just thinking yesterday, that was 2 weeks ago, I was in Madrid, and now Spain is on lockdown, and it looks like things are going to go this way in here in New York City as well. So it just kind of shows you how quickly things can shift. So yeah, hi Janet. Yeah, nice to see you. As my mom is on the chat, making sure that I'm okay. Let's talk big time. One of the things I spoke about, or actually when I was sitting down and looking at the astrology of 2020, March always stood out. And as an astrologer, you look ahead and you kind of look at the different players, you look at the variables, you kind of say, okay, what's the kind of the story that's emerging? And we knew, or at least astrologers knew, that 2020 was going to be potentially a very interesting year. Why is that? So back in January, maybe you remember some of the things I was talking about then, and even in the run-up in December, I kept talking about something called Saturn conjunct Pluto. That was when these two planets were in the sky. They hadn't been together since 1982. It was October of 82, if I'm remembering correctly. And it's a big deal because these two planets together, Saturn is about structure and government and power, and Pluto is sometimes kind of shake that. It can, and I called it the wrecking ball at the time, and maybe that was a little bit of a, I don't know if that's scandalous, but certainly it wasn't meant to be necessarily overly dramatic, but I think that that's certainly in play right now. But the things that we see happening then, or at least the seeds that were planted and the things that are happening now, is that the structures as we know have to shift. That's the nature of Pluto. And maybe this is kind of a little bit of an uncomfortable truth, but astrology tells us what time it is. And the hands on the clock right now, and they have been pointing for quite some time, that things as we know it have to shift. And this is why each year goes by and it's like, when is it going to change? When is it going to get better? Why does this keep getting a little bit kind of weirder and weirder? It's because all the hands on the clock are saying it's time to shift. And one of the things that I talked about at the start of the year was how 2020 was this check-in on 2008. Why is that? Well, in 2008, that was the year that Pluto went into Capricorn. And to give you some context of why it was a big deal at the time, it's 12 years ago, if you can believe it at this point, Pluto doesn't move very quickly. If it's a hand on the clock, it takes 248 years to go around the clock face. So when it changes signs, as you can imagine, it doesn't happen very often. Where Pluto is in the sky right now, it hasn't been there since the 1770s. That's how long. Now, as an astrologer, I look at big time, capital B, big time. And of course, we're looking at, okay, where's the sun right now? It's Pisces season. There's that level, but we can't lose sight of the bigger picture. So this Pluto hand goes into Capricorn, so it's pointing towards Capricorn in 2008. And Pluto is this planet of non-negotiable transformation. We have to go through this process of sort of deconstructing something so something better can be built. And we saw that in 2008. We saw a lot of big shifts, and even in your personal lives. And I ask people, like, especially if you are an Aries, a Cancer, a Capricorn, or a Libra, I'm like, what's your 2008, 2009 story? And often there's some sort of pivotal life transformation that happened around that time. There's a breakup, there's a change in jobs, maybe there was, certain economic impacts at that time. But that sent these people in a new powerful direction. That's sort of like the bigger evolutionary process at work here. So here we are, 12 years later, and another hand on the clock has also been pointing towards Capricorn. It's been doing so since the start of 2018, and that hand is the Saturn hand. And Saturn, if it's a hand on the clock, it takes 29 years to go around the sun, or around the clock, compared to, say, Pluto, which is 248 years. So here comes Saturn's. Now we're on Saturn time. Saturn's pointing towards Capricorn, and it's kind of checking in with everything that we've done and the work we've done, both on a physical level, a spiritual level, an evolutionary level, since 2008. And this week in particular, Saturn is at what's called 29 Capricorn. And I've been talking about this the past couple of weeks, how as Saturn gets to 29 Capricorn, so sort of this week, last week, it's crunch time. Saturn's saying, hey, what have you been working on? What are the lessons that you've been learning since the start of 2018, but also since 2008? And when I wrote what I wrote today in my daily update about the astrology, I said, go back and read. I posted some links, and they are in the show notes. Go back and read my Pluto and Capricorn side-by-side guide, my Saturn and Capricorn side-by-side guide, and also my Mars and Capricorn side-by-side guide, because that's going to hopefully start to give you more of a concrete picture of what's going on in your life. So if, for instance, if you're an Aries, it's been this huge, long 12-year story that's kind of been condensing up until the last couple of years. And now here we are at Saturn at 29 Capricorn, about career, direction, your professional life. Taurus, it's about belief and faith. And what does this all mean? It's the search for meaning, the search for truth. If you're a Gemini, this is about you facing the deepest parts of yourself, your fears, this kind of deep emotional transformation work that you've been doing, not just in the past 2 years, but off and on since 2008. If you are a Cancer, this is about relationships. It's a much bigger story about how you connect and interact, socialize, and even partner with people, both on a romantic and a non-romantic level. If you are a Leo, this is about your health. This is how you take care of your body. This is how you show up on a day-to-day life, your, kind of your practice, your rituals, your schedule, your organization. If you are a Virgo, this is about you, the essence of who you are, the self, creativity, talent, how you express who you are. It's all like, as I kind of pop through these signs, this is your, like, kind of where this is all forming, kind of this nexus that's forming right now. If you are a Libra, this is about home and family and who you call family, who you get to call family, your relationship with your family, the people that you've brought in to nourish you and nurture you like family, the roots that you've put down, the foundation that you've built in your life over the last 12 years or even the last 2 years. If you're a Scorpio, this is about voice. It's how you communicate, how you're heard, how you think, your ideas. There's a sense of movement with Scorpio right now, curiosity. So this is what's kind of coming together. I think there's a sense of alchemy and fruition right now. If you kind of strip away some of the things that are happening on a global scale, it's kind of more like the personal level. If you're a Sagittarius, this is about money. This is about your worth and your value, and also how you command, how you earn a living, how you, what you spend your money on, what you accumulate, what you need, like on a material level, to feel safe and secure in your life. If you are an Aquarius, this is, did I jump over something? Capricorn. If you're a Capricorn, this is about you, like you on such a fundamental level. And Capricorn, like you have been in this massive state of transformation, whether you realize it or not, since 2008 when Pluto first went into Capricorn. Like you're kind of going through this massive personal pressure and test right now, this kind of forging, this kind of soul alchemy right now that can be quite difficult at times, but it's a new beginning for you. If you are an Aquarius, this is kind of happening more behind the scenes. This is about your spiritual life. This is about your spiritual connection and finding the answers to these existential questions that only you can answer, that can't be found in a book. They have to be found within. So there's a sense of like spiritual quests and spiritual searching at this time. It also might mean that you've had to dig into the deepest parts of yourself, your unconscious, your psyche, your dreams over the last couple of years, or even the last 12 years. Maybe this has been a mystical time for Aquarius for some of you. But it's about really trying to figure out what those answers are, and also let go of a lot of deep spiritual baggage. Last but not least, Pisces. So Pisces, for you, this has been about friends and community and your place in the world and the people you call friends, and you're feeling like you belong to something, groups, community, thinking ahead towards the future. So this is very much about relationships for you, Pisces. And this has been a story that's been going on since 2008. So maybe this is my invitation to you all to really think about where you were in 2008, 2009, and how far you've come. The person that you've transformed in, the life that you've built, the life that you've had to rebuild, the life that you've had to transform, because it's all sort of coming together this week. I think the story is going to continue. Pluto is still in Capricorn. It will be in Capricorn until 2023, 2024. So we got a few more years of this sort of like big time of Pluto in Capricorn. But Saturn, it's at 29 Capricorn right now. It goes into Aquarius on March 21st. So this is Saturday, March 21st. Not to get ahead of myself, Saturn will spend 3 months in Capricorn, or in Aquarius. So we're all about to get a preview of what this new time is about. This new time that's very much focused on Aquarius. I did a webinar on Saturn in Aquarius last week. I think it went very well. I did put the first 12 minutes on my YouTube page. There's a link in the show notes. You can watch it when you want. Of course, there's the full webinar, but the introduction gives an overview of Saturn and Aquarius, but I'll come back to some of those bigger points. So one of the things I wanted to talk about this week is that there's Mars. On top of all this stuff I've been talking about, big time, somewhat big time, and then here comes Mars. Mars takes 2 years, if it's a hand on the clock, to go around the clock. So it's been pointing towards Capricorn since February 16th. And, you know, like I was starting to say at the beginning of this live broadcast, when I was looking ahead towards the astrology of this year, you know, we knew that Saturn was changing signs. We knew that there was going to be a big time shift in March. But the thing that kind of was the big question mark was Mars, because Mars was also going to go into Capricorn. It was going to spend the second half of February and then all of March in Capricorn. And as it does so, it was going to sort of ping recent eclipse degrees. Is going to ping the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that was back on January 12th. And I know that when the conjunction happened, there was a little bit of like, okay, maybe that wasn't as bad as we thought it would be. But I'm thinking, this is just my professional opinion, of course, seek other opinions out there, that now that Mars is in Capricorn, now that Mars is getting to that degree, which it will this week, this is why we're starting to see things on a much bigger scale. These kind of systems are shifting, shaking, moving. Sort of we're seeing kind of Pluto and Saturn energy really do its thing. And I mean, not to be alarmist, but when Saturn and Pluto were opposite in the sky, that was 9/11. So here they are back again together in the sky. So we are seeing big world things happening. Big world stuff isn't maybe not necessarily the type of astrology I want to do. I personally would rather focus on you guys, but I think the point that I was making in my video last week is that I have to talk about it. It's, I can't say, oh, it's the moon's in Libra, let's go out and socialize, when we're being told to stay indoors. So it's kind of like I have to adapt as an astrologer, just as we are all adapting to what's going on in the world right now. I'm just checking on the comments for a moment. See some familiar faces. Thank you. Thank you everybody for your kind words. Yeah, my mom's telling me to stay put. I am. So yes. So here comes Mars. So this is my concern about this week's astrology. And I'm saying this, and I'll say it like this. I'll just tell you how I'm living my life and how I'm going about my day. So, because I have obviously access to a lot more information than you all do, I am being cautious. I'm being smart. I'm listening to the experts. I'm staying at home. I'm looking at the astrology as an observer and saying, okay, this week there's some potentially difficult and disruptive astrology going on today, tomorrow, later this week and into the weekend. My concern and maybe my curiosity is what happens when Saturn changes signs on Saturday, because I feel like a lot of the things that we're feeling right now is because Saturn is at the last degree of the sign of Capricorn. And when a planet, especially a planet that will spend a few weeks or a couple weeks there, is at the end of a sign, it's sort of like it's the concentration of the energy. There's like a lot of intensity at the last degree of the sign. So will things feel different? Will we have a different perspective and a new clarity when Saturn goes into Aquarius on Sunday or Saturday? I hope so. Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn talks about time and how we're experienced time and the sort of the thematic time that we're going through. And Saturn and Aquarius is all about, well, there's two sides of Aquarius. There's two sides to every sign, but there's two sides to Aquarius. It's the sign of connection, humanity, community, equity, sort of like let's be all in this together and sort of figure out how to create a solution that benefits everybody. Then there's the other side of Aquarius, which when you feel a bit disconnected, you feel like you're all alone in your home, or you have no friends, or you don't know who your community is. So I think we're feeling both right now, but you are seeing things online about people that are doing the right thing, that people who are trying to figure out kind of how do we stay in unity, how do we stay together, how do we stay connected. I find it very interesting that the internet is going to have a Saturn return. The internet as a public entity, its birthday is August of 1991, and Saturn was at, I think it was 2 degrees of Aquarius in August of 1991. So here we are during everything that's going on right now, and everybody's moving online. I know that there's a luxury, and not everybody has the luxury to move online, but the fact that we're doing this Facebook Live, instead of was supposed to have some astrologers come over my house on Saturday. We couldn't do it. It just wasn't the safe thing to do. So we did like a Zoom call. We did like a video Zoom call. And I know that other people are doing like FaceTime or Zoom or Skype Hangouts. So it's just interesting that, I think that there's going to be something about science and technology that's really seated at this time. There has to be some sort of technological and scientific response to this time. If you look back at the last two times that Saturn was in Aquarius, so 91 to 94, and also 1962 to 1964, there was a lot of like technology that was in its infancy that would later become a big deal. So whether it's the space program or the internet in its infancy in the 90s. And I think it's a time when we all have to have social awareness. I think Saturn and Capricorn is great for a lot of things, but really that kind of sense of unity and social awareness that sometimes a Saturn Aquarius in its best light can do, that's what I'm really holding out for this time, that we, as a reaction to what's going on, we have a much different relationship with all things Aquarius: community, friends, social connection, a new relationship with technology, and hopefully a more positive relationship with technology that creates unity and connection as opposed to creates division. So that's, it's so funny because I was writing about the astrology this week, and I kept forgetting that Saturn was going into Aquarius because it's just so Mars at the moment. Mars is also going to be in Aquarius, it's going to go into Aquarius on March 31st, so at the very end of this month. So right now it's really kind of plugging into that Capricorn energy. Capricorn, it's a wonderful sign. It's a sign of, really structures and building things for the future and ambitions. And we all need Capricorn. We all need to feel like we're working towards something bigger in our lives and growing up and maturing. But like I said, every sign has two sides. And the other side of Capricorn is kind of this heavy, repressive, very intense, and sometimes quite dark, because it is the sign of the material. It's not the sign of spirit, it's the sign of the material. So I'm hoping that things will start to shift a little bit. But my concern, and this is my professional concern, is that right now the sun's in Pisces. We're sort of not quite fully here at the moment. I mean, that's sort of the purpose of Pisces season. It's meant for us to rest. It's meant for us to reconnect to our inner voice, our intuition, and there's the art and music and dance side of Pisces. But we were not kind of fully present. We're not here on Earth. And then the sun this week goes into Aries. So yes, it's going to be an Aries season. Happy birthday, Aries. You probably not going to have a birthday party. Maybe it's like a Zoom call birthday party this time around. So sorry, Aries. But when the sun goes into Aries on the 19th, late 19th, at least here in New York City, it'll be the 20th. If you're in London or Europe or Sydney or New Zealand, once it goes into Aries, Aries is elementally a very different sign than Pisces. Pisces is water, Aries is fire. So the sun moving into Aries means sort of the elemental shift, the tonal shift goes from water to fire, and fire can, in its positive expression, can motivate us to take action, motivate us to have courage, motivate us to move forward and start new. But there's the other side of fire, which is very aggressive, alarmist. There's something, so it might mean that we're feeling a little bit more panicked, and we have to really work harder to stay grounded and calm when the sun goes into Aries. And then that, what's called is dispositorship. So when the sun goes into Aries, it's going to point back to that Mars and Capricorn. So I think in Mars and Capricorn in its highest expression is about knowing exactly what the plan is and knowing exactly how to execute it, because Mars in Capricorn is about command. Mars is in a sign that is exalted. So Mars really does a good job in Capricorn. So my hope is that maybe there might be some things in the world that are shaking later this week, but I'm hoping that the better side of Mars in Capricorn sort of takes over when it's like, okay, I got this. I know what I need to do. Somebody's in charge. Somebody's being the leader. Maybe this is a time when we're really seeing leadership come to the forefront. This like maybe new leaders. I mean, I will say that Aquarius, with Saturn going into Aquarius is science and technology. And I'm hoping that with Saturn and Aquarius, we're listening to the experts, because Saturn, Aquarius is a very smart sign, it's a very intelligent sign, it's a very intelligent sign for a reason, so that we can really get some clear picture and clear ideas about what's going on. I know that, I got a few questions from people, and I got a message from somebody who was quite panicked, and like, how long is this going to go on? Her parents are in their 60s, and she's got an elderly grandparent, and I hear you. I mean, me too. I don't have any grandparents left, but my parents are in their 60s, and we all have to take precautions. Now, how long is this going to last? I'm not 100% sure. Here's my professional opinion and also my concern. These eclipses, so the virus first came about that we know of. The first reported cases are right after the solar eclipse on December 26th. So in China, that's when, in like the end of the year, that's when the first cases were reported about this kind of flu-like thing. 2 weeks later, on the lunar eclipse, you have your first fatalities. So what this is telling me as an astrologer, that there's something about this virus that seems to be running in concert with the eclipses. So this is why this week, Mars is on eclipse degrees this week. We're kind of going to the next stage, the next part of the story. When the sun in Aries, for instance, it'll start to activate eclipse degrees is in April. So April might be a time when this is continuing to go on, and we're kind of going into the next stage of the story. My other concern is that Mars will spend 6 months in Aries. It goes in on the 26th of June, I believe. It might be the 27th of June, and it doesn't leave Aries until the beginning of 2021. That's 6 months. It's normally 6 weeks, because Mars will go retrograde from September to November. Everything that's going on in the world kind of gave that Mars in Aries a different perspective. So my concern is that there's kind of like these different waves, like things go up, things go down, things go up, things go down, and that this is something that's with us for different points throughout 2020. I hope that I'm wrong, but this is me just looking at data. Please always listen to your healthcare professionals. That's the most important person in the room at the moment. But from an astrological standpoint, that's my concern. So I think that we need to really keep an eye on the astrology this week, and also the astrology going into April, about how that is making things happen on a world stage. So, but let's bring this down to a personal level. How are you taking care of yourself? And when I sent out my weekly newsletter early on Monday, I was really like, what do I say in this time? I have to say something. How do I respond to the astrology and talk about what I'm doing? Because I think that fear and panic is a very destructive energy. It's a very human energy, and I think there's a lot of reasons why we have some concerns about what's going on right now, whether it's about our loved ones, whether it's about ourselves and our economic health. But I think fear and panic, and I'm only speaking for myself, you all have to live your lives as you see fit. I do my best not to be in fear and panic, because it feeds something very dark in this world, and it makes it so that we can't see what the best options are. Somebody who's deeply empathic, which means I feel other people's emotions, I feel the waves of panic that are going through the world right now, because I feel it in my body, and I'm like, this is not mine, and I have to take, kind of create some, clearing and some energetic distance. So trust me, I'm feeling you all right now. So that's kind of, I'm taking it slow. There's a lot of question marks myself. Maybe true to Pisces season, I'm like completely surrendered to this because I'm obviously not in the driver's seat. I'm trying to be smart. The North Node is in Cancer right now, and that was something that I mentioned in my weekly newsletter. When we get lost, so to speak, when life is a little confusing, it's always good to go back and see where the North Node is, because it's like our spiritual north point on the compass. And you have your own lunar node in your chart. So it's like when you get lost or if you get confused, it's really good to go back to your chart and reorient yourself to the lunar node. The lunar node right now is in Cancer. So it's really important that we remember to go back to Cancer. And what does that mean? Cancer as a sign archetypically is home and family. It's emotional connection. It's a feeling of safety and security. And we're spending a lot more time in our homes right now. And if you have a family and if you're spending this time with your family, that hopefully this is creating a sense of nurturing and solidarity. But it's very important that we take gentle care of ourselves right now. We give ourselves the love and attention that we would a child. That's really the energy of Cancer. So being very kind of patient and loving, the sense of nostalgia and a home-cooked meal. And I don't know, maybe this is superficial, but I think that sometimes we need these reminders of where we need to at least anchor ourselves when we're going through some astrological storm. So again, I'm just sharing what I'm focusing on, what I'm looking at. There's a lot of question marks in my life because I'm a human being as well. But I wanted to make sure that we all had this update today, this check-in, and a chance to talk about what's going on and what a potential timeline looks like. I personally, intuitively, I don't think this is going anywhere anytime soon. I think that every call to take precaution has been a sound one, but that's just my personal feeling. Do not take risks right now, especially that's the thing, there's still a lot of unknowns. And somebody asked me in one of the questions that somebody asked in today's astrology update was about Mercury going into Pisces, if that would give some sort of new information. See, a lot of this sort of blew up a little bit more when Mercury was retrograde. So we don't fully have the story right now. Mercury obviously is direct. It's been direct for the last, since the beginning of last week on the 9th. It's as of today, it's back in Pisces. Mercury in Pisces isn't exactly the clearest place for Mercury to be, so our information is unclear at the moment, and Mercury will not get into Aries until I believe it's like the 14th of April, if I'm remembering correctly. So really take everything you hear, just make sure it's coming from the right sources is what I'm trying to say, because sometimes Mercury is in Pisces is much more well suited for intuitive, artistic, dream work, that kind of a thing. Getting very clear facts, not so much. So really make sure that you're getting the absolute clearest of information, especially as we wrap up Mercury's shadow. It'll start to wrap up its shadow period at the very beginning of April as Mercury gets to 12 Pisces, its retrograde degree. I'm going to just check in on the comments. Just looking, I'm seeing some familiar faces. I'll have to go back and respond to some of you directly. But yeah, New York somebody said DC is in lockdown. New York is really heading towards that direction. So we live in interesting times, as they say. I think that we've always, I mean, at least to me, I think that there's a reason why certain things are happening in the world and why it increasingly seems more critical that we pay attention. It just seems like something is trying to get our attention. And the way that I'm personally seeing this time is it's a time to really reflect on oneself and how we need to get our personal like house in order. And I think that Saturn in Aquarius is so much about the collective, and that we are no longer individuals when we're in the sign of Aquarius. We are humanity, we are connected, and we are kind of one. And so this idea that we all need to work together now to really rectify a lot of ills in the world. I think the world is trying to tell us something, that something's wrong with the system, and Aquarius is systems. So we're going to be really working on our systems in the next couple of years, and maybe something beautiful that comes out of this time is that the system that we're building, the system that we're correcting, is much better than it was before. That's my hope. So continue to, I'm just kind of checking in on the comments. Brittany asked, any advice to somebody moving in this chaos? I'm in the chaos too, Brittany. I'll tell you what I'm doing. As somebody, again, who's highly empathic, I feel I'm in a city of 8.5 million people. There's 2.5 million people in Brooklyn. Something you might not know about me, or maybe you do know about me because I put this in that, I was interviewed a couple weeks ago about my daily habits. I like to wake up really early, not because I necessarily love to wake up really early, but I like it because New York is quiet and I hear energy and I hear thoughts. And imagine being in a city with 8.5 million people all thinking at the same time. There's kind of this din you have to push, out of your perception. And so I get up 5, 6 in the morning because it's quiet. It nourishes my soul. So I guess what I'm trying to say is do something that's going to really nourish your soul right now. It's going to really get you back into your body, make you feel safe, whether that's something like where you're cooking something nice for yourself, or you're really kind of like, feeling your body and making your cells feel very safe. I spend an hour in the morning meditating, and I have the luxury to do that. Meditating, clearing my energy, reestablishing my connection, because when the world is shaking, it's right now there's a disturbance in the force, and I think that because there is a disturbance in the force, we have to sort of individually work to kind of get calm and to create a sense of connection and groundedness and unity, because the more that we do that, the more that it's just going to kind of calm the force so we can kind of see our way through this. I spend time meditating, I check in with my spirit guides, I listen for wisdom about what I should be working on, and that's what nourishes my soul. So you have to find what nourishes your soul right now. I think that what this time is teaching us is that we need to really shift our priorities, because there's nothing like everything being canceled and you have no say in it, like it just has to be canceled. That really makes you realize what's important. And maybe that's what North Node and Cancer is all about. It's really getting back to our hearts and what's important. So that's my weekly update. Boy, do we live in interesting times. I do thank you all for checking in with me. And if you're watching on the replay, whether you're on YouTube or IGTV on Instagram, please say hello. Please like my stuff, please share it. And of course, check out the show notes if you want to do some further reading. You can check out my Saturn in Aquarius webinar, especially as Saturn does go into Aquarius on this week, March 21st, so Saturday. And I'm also here for consultations if you want to do one-on-one. Part of what I do is really helping people connect to the truth and wisdom of their soul and why they came here and what they're working on. So anyway, be safe out there. Hopefully you're able to shelter in place with loved ones. I'm here by myself in solitary confinement. So thank you for letting me have this chance to connect with you all. But until the next time, thank you very much. Bye.